one play at a third time. So let's not focus on the great game. Let's focus on the great play. Let's play with passion, let's play with love, let's play with responsibility, let's play with respect for one another.
How you feel? How you feel?
Morning. I don't want you to focus on, because if I ask you right now, do you want to have a great game? All y'all gonna say yes, right? I want you to focus on, I want to have a great play. I want to have a great play. Then the next play, I want to have.
We are back with another week of HBCU football, and we had a good weekend last week. We had a bunch of good games. We saw Alcorn State versus Prairie View. We saw Grambling versus Alabama A&M. We saw FAMU versus Jackson State. But the game that I want to talk about first is Norfolk versus Delaware State in Philadelphia, actually at Lincoln Financial Field. Michael, what were your thoughts about that? I know you were pretty excited to see them two head coaches face off, and I know you were sending me clips from the game. So what are your thoughts about it?
Oh man, the game itself was just electrifying altogether. It was great to see Michael Vick and DeSean Jackson back together once again, face to face on each side of the field. You know, if you know football, you know that these two were a duo back then when they were playing in Philadelphia. So the fact that the game was at Lincoln Financial Field, where it basically all started with them two, that just adds more fuel to the history on the legacy that those guys put on that field. Now they're continuing their legacy and carrying it on to one of the best HBCUs in HBCUs. So I think it was great to see the brotherhood in those two continue. You know, it wasn't no bitterness. It was just straight positive brotherly love that you would like to see throughout every single game, whether it's a rivalry or not. It's all about, just coming together as two and just bringing a big event to Philadelphia. And I believe both teams did that, Deuce. I mean, it was an electrifying game, and I knew it was.
I mean, Michael, I ain't not going to lie. It was closer than I expected, Michael. And I remember I told you that. Final score was 27-20, but I remember I texted you when Norfolk was actually up early on in the game.
Right.
Delaware State eventually did pull out a little bit, but Norfolk kept it a pretty good game. But the fact that they had it at a venue like the Eagles Stadium, at an actual NFL NFL level stadium instead of just a collegiate stadium, that shows how important that they knew that this event was. But going forward, Michael, I know you're talking about Delaware State. Are they your lock to go to the championship game, to Celebration Bowl?
I believe they're in lock with me as far as their potential ticket on representing the MEAC conference and going to the Celebration Bowl without a doubt. It's just going to come down between South Carolina State and I believe.
And we were talking about South Carolina State. That's the team that we said is going to be probably the team that they have to play for the championship game. To see who goes to the championship game. Delaware State plays them the last week. They got Morgan State, they got Howard, and they got South Carolina State. Those are at least games that are all winnable. I think it's Delaware State's to lose right now. We're going to the championship game, the Celebration Bowl. But if they do make it, they most definitely deserve it.
They do. And, dudes, there were a lot of key game notes that I took at this game. I just first thing that I'll put out here, and I've basically already said it already. I wrote this down. The coaching matchup, right? The game featured a head-to-head battle between rookie head coaches and former Philadelphia Eagle teammates, DeSean Jackson and Michael Vick, which I think both coaches did extremely well coaching their offense, especially Michael Vick and Norfolk State. Regardless of their struggles, they came into this game. They didn't back down from Delaware State. They gave Delaware State a game. They fought with them down to the wire. Me and Deuce thought this game was going to be a little bit more of upscoring on the Delaware side, but that just comes to show you that regardless of a team record, it's all about how that team performs in that game. Even Delaware State, they came into this game with a better record than Norfolk State did, and Norfolk State played like we cleaned up what we were struggling with, and they could have won this game. They really could have. They gave Delaware State a huge fight, but on the Delaware State side, it just showed you that DeSean Jackson's impact on that team has progressed. It's going to get more and more progress as this season goes along. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they do end up going to the Celebration Bowl. They had that firepower. If you see a pregame, DeSean Jackson, he's already firing up these guys. He's getting them hungry. He's getting them ready. And that's the kind of leader that you need. When you're hungry and you get your team hungry, that leads to the game coming out better. Even though this game came out close, but that just shows you that the hunger never left from the start to finish. And then, on Delaware State side, running game, the Hornets rallied a strong rushing attack with 201 total rushing yards. James Jones finished with 10 carries for 109 yards, while Marquise Gillis added 79 yards on 17 carries. And I believe I said Gillis' name right. I apologize if I didn't. Y'all forgive me. Next thing, passing game, quarterback, Caden Bennett. Dudes, here it is right here. Completed 16 of 18 passes, okay, for 158 yards with one. Now, that's pretty darn good stat for him to only have 2 incompletions throughout the whole entire game. But then again, like I just said, it was Delaware State's running game that really had that offense more improving than the passing game. The passing game was a little bit added to that, but it was really more the rushing game that got Delaware State, to win this game and to finish it off. Because like I said, Norfolk State could have tied this game, but their defense, which I'm about to get to, the defense played a key role in limiting Norfolk State's ground game to just 45 yards. Deuce, that defense, the defense of Delaware State is what got them this win. This game could win the overtime. This game could have came down to a field goal. So it just shows you that Delaware State has the defense, but they also got the offense. If they don't have the passing game, they got the running game. They have weapons. And Norfolk State, I'm going to make this quick because I ain't trying to take too long. The offensive struggles. Deuce, we talked about this week after week.
Mm-hmm.
The Spartans struggled to establish a consistent offense, particularly in the running game. Quarterback, Michael Vick appeared hesitant to commit to the passing attack early in the game. I don't know if y'all saw that. A tactical adjustment that took too long for the team to make. What I'm saying is Michael Vick was kind of unconfident to go with the quarterback early in the game, which caused struggles in the first half. Now, momentum shift. The team was unable to overcome a late deficit, suffering its 7th consecutive loss. So Norfolk State, they have their rotation issues. They have their player struggles in trying to figure out who is who. Like I said earlier in the episodes, this season for Michael Vick and Norfolk State in general, it's just to see where this team is at. They're not too far gone. But at the same time, this is not the season that I was expecting to be kind of like Delaware State. Because Delaware State, before DeSean Jackson came, was a little bit better than Norfolk State. So now it's just like Michael Vick is just basically going through this season of what he was brought into when he came into this team. So when he came to the facility. So it's just those were key moments in the game, Deuce, that caused Norfolk State to lose this game, which caused Delaware State to win this game. So it was a lot of key moments, especially with the special teams for Norfolk State, a block punt, which resulted in a Delaware State touchdown. So it was a lot of struggles. There was a lot of positives and negatives. But I think for Norfolk State, they can learn from this. As far as Delaware State, they can keep winning. I really don't see no one stopping them, but it's all up to them. it's all gas, no brakes with DeSean Jackson and Delaware State.
I mean, look, I agree. I think Delaware State is my lock to go to the MEAC championship. I think they've shown me all year that they know what it takes to win. They have the weapons, like you said, Michael, on the offense and defensive side of the ball to win. But one thing I will say I do like about this is that the exposure it got for these two schools, and even now ESPN has said like, hey, these coaches are going to get more exposure, more like time on ESPN. So I like that. But also one thing I can't take away from this game is that, look, like you said, Norfolk this season is okay. We need to find out what's going wrong, and we need to go on. We need to go for next season, and we need to fix it.
It's there. It's obviously there.
I agree.
And it's not the end of the world. It is not like your future is not. Norfolk State future is not in the balance. It's just one season. What I'm saying is that this is a progression season for Michael Vick to get comfortable to. Now it's just like, okay, we're not doing so hot right now. So now it's like we need to make adjustments in the offseason. And, it's just really levels at the levels that you have to take. Every year, as a first-year head coach, it's a level. It's levels to this game. As people say all the time, it's levels. You're gonna have low levels in your first season. You're going to have high levels. Sometimes it takes longer. It just depends on the team that you're coaching. So it's not the end of the world, and I'm not giving up hope on Michael Vick, and I hope, the Spartans fans are not giving up hope either, because this is just the first season. I mean, it was expected. I mean, you said this before the season started.
Look, Delaware State just happened to have a different outcome than Norfolk. I say give Norfolk another a year for Michael Vick, but I wouldn't be so quick to jump the gun. But jumping into the SWAC side of things, it was interesting, Michael. I remember I was telling you that Texas Southern and Prairie View needed to lose if Grambling wanted to stay in the playoff picture.
Mm-hmm.
That happened this weekend. As you can see, 31-28. I know for the Alabama State game, Andrew Body did come out early. Alabama State was playing with the backup quarterback. They still edged out the win. Michael, I know this was one of your most anticipated games for the week. Just your quick thoughts on this Alabama State versus Prairie View. You think, because you got to think about it, Alabama State, if they would have lost this one, that race is going to be, it would have been harder for them to take it to the championship game. But they're still in this between them, Jackson State, and Bethune-Cookman. They still have a shot along. And then, on the west side of things, Grambling still has a shot with Texas Southern and Prairie View losing. But what are your thoughts on this Alabama State and Prairie View game?
I will say the hype for this game and the prediction that we gave last week was, it definitely backed up everything that we said. This game was a lot closer, just like we anticipated. I was expecting this game to come down to a touchdown in overtime, but the odds were different. But I'm gonna jump to the notes I have. I'm gonna start off with Alabama State first. Key performers. I believe I'm saying this brother's name right. Jamari Hossenclaw rushed for 127 rushing yards. Marcus Harris the second, 2 rushing touchdowns, and DeAndre Morris had 2 interceptions. Deuce, the game turning point in this game. And I wrote this down. Here it is. A second half surge where Alabama State scored 24 unanswered points after falling behind 14-0. Deuce, I'm going to say it again. The game turning point. A second half surge where Alabama State scored 24 unanswered points after falling behind 14. Deuce, Prairie View had this game control in the first half. They started 14-0, Deuce. But it just shows you that you cannot sleep on Andrew Biden and Alabama State. When I saw the game 14-0, I'm like, this game ain't over with. This game ain't over with. I knew it wasn't. Because what you got to understand about Andrew Biden and Alabama State offensive line, and Alabama State offense, is that you might have them struggling in the first half, but you got to understand that the first half ain't gonna be no different from the second half because this just shows you that Andrew Body is a baller. Okay, you ain't gonna beat him down for too long, even though he got injured, but he's still a baller. And we said that last week. Andrew Body is gonna be trouble against Prairie View. Final drive.
Look, Andrew Body only played a half of football.
Yeah.
And you could kind of see, but look, in the third quarter, Alabama State's offense, they still kept the train rolling. They scored 10 points. Fourth quarter, they didn't, which allowed Prairie View to get the game closer to come back.
Yeah.
But look, I'm going to say this. Even without Andrew Body, this shows that this Alabama State team has the weapons and has the roster to win.
They got depth. They got depth at the roster position. And, Deuce, it came down to the final drive that secured the win after Denzel Johnson tackled Rodney Ojo for a loss on the final drive, setting up a missed 53-yard field goal. Deuce, that was a long field goal. He had the kicking power.
Mm-hmm.
The accuracy just wasn't really there. It was a long kick to make. Not a lot of kickers in the HBCU game can make kicks like that. I'm not saying he wasn't capable, but I'm just saying is that what you have to understand is that when it comes down to HBCU games, 9 out of 10 kickers aren't going to make 50-plus yard field goals unless you get a real talented kicker. Not saying that Prairie View doesn't have that, but what I'm saying is, and I think y'all understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that sometimes it's real hard when you watch HBCU game to see a kicker kick a long field goal like that, and 9 out of 10 they either don't make it or they do, and it's like real short. It just really depends on the kicking power and how well your snapper is on kicking the ball, because you can't have a perfect kick if you ain't got a good snapper, and you can't have a good snapper without a good holder, so the ball can be kicked correctly. Because you also have to remember this: in football, if that ball is not turned away from the laces, 9 out of 10, that ball is either gonna go left to the right. So that was the turning point in that game, Deuce. That kind of killed the final drive for Prairie View, and that gave Alabama State the win in that game.
I'm gonna say this. I still think Prairie View is gonna win this division.
Without.
Let me see. You play Alabama. The rest of their 3 games are 10 games that are all winnable. Alabama A&M, Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Mississippi Valley. Arkansas Pine Bluff, they just came off a win against Southern, but they're still sitting at 2-3 in the conference and 3-5 overall. Alabama A&M, they just came off a loss, and they're sitting at 1-4, 4-5 for the year. Mississippi Valley State, who we've been telling you all year hasn't looked good, 0-4 conference play, 1-7. So look, I think Prairie View is going to shake back from this loss, finish out the season strong. As much as I want Grambling to get Prairie View, catch up with Prairie View and Prairie View to lose out, I don't think it's going to happen.
It's not.
But and then looking at it from Alabama State side, Alabama State, hey, you play Texas Southern, who in my opinion is your next best shot. If his next best team, whatever Texas Southern comes to play, because I've said this multiple times, Texas Southern is inconsistent at times.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say this also: if Alabama State can beat Texas Southern, that's good for Grambling, because Texas Southern will drop down to 3-3 in conference play, and Grambling has to beat Bethune-Cookman. And we're gonna talk about Bethune-Cookman and Grambling in a bit, but Alabama State most definitely just has to worry about Texas Southern in my eyes in order to, basically win the division. But I think right now we're seeing not win the division, but you still, because Alabama State needs a Jackson State loss. But in order to win out the division, Alabama State needs to win out, and they need Jackson State to lose one more game.
Yeah.
And we're getting towards the end of the season, so this is kind of where logistics and all this matters. The one game that I will say to be like Bethune-Cookman versus Jackson State. That they play in 2 weeks. That game is going to be a determining for a lot of stuff. That's going to be probably determine if Jackson State is out the playoff picture, if Bethune-Cookman takes division, if Alabama State takes division. And it's more complicated on the eastern side of things than the west, but this is just how it.
Competitive in the West. It's really more because it's a tie. It's almost a three-way tie that you have to see.
I think in the East, yes, in the East it's a more three-way tie, and I think in the West, normally the team the teams that we expect to do good in the West are not doing so hot this year.
Yeah,
I think that has a lot to play with it, but
it does. It does.
Michael, I just want to ask you this really quick. Texas Southern versus Alcorn. What are your thoughts on that? Alcorn, we've been talking about this all year. Alcorn, we believe they have the roster.
They do.
And they got this one over Texas Southern, which is a big one because Texas Southern is ahead of them in conference play. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, Alcorn State I believe Alcorn State sent the message to not just me and you, Deuce, but I think they sent a message to just the whole SWAC in general that, regardless of our record, we're not a team that you want to sleep on. We're definitely not a team you want to bet on because they came to this game, they beat Texas Southern a whole lot, differently than we anticipated, than I anticipated. Alcorn State beat Texas Southern 33-14. Alcorn State victories was their running back, Reggie Davis. He rushed for 3 touchdowns and 87 yards, Deuce. Quarterback, Jaquez Drew, passed for 222 yards and a touchdown. Ground game, the team rushed for a total. Here it is. The team rushed for a total of 224 yards, Deuce. Alcorn State just basically proved in this game that their offense is not the best. But when it comes down to flashy moments, they got it. They got enough flashiness to make some noise. They got enough flashiness to get down the field. They got enough flashiness to put some points on the board. So it just comes to show you, dudes, that Alcorn State, even though they're 2-3 a conference record, but 3-6 overall, it don't matter. The point is, they still are that team that you do not want to sleep on. And I believe that's what Texas Southern did. And it's just now, dudes, here it is. They are currently tied with Arkansas Pine Bluff at 2-3 in the SWAC, which puts the Lions ahead of the Braves. So it's all gonna come down to next week. If Arkansas Pine Bluff loses to Florida A&M and Alcorn State wins their game, then that means Alcorn State will take over and they'll step ahead of the Lions in their division. So it's not technically over for Alcorn State to get past the Lions and be in a good spot. Now, I'm not saying the fact of them going to the Celebration Bowl is out the picture. And I say that respectfully. And I know y'all can too. But what I'm saying is they can finish in a good spot in the SWAC. They have the capabilities. They have the offense, and they clearly have the defense to finish this season off on a high note. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do it. Texas Southern struggled. Offense had difficulty sustaining drives. Scoring, Deuce scored 7 points in the first quarter and 7 in the fourth, with 0 points in the second and third quarter. Deuce, Texas Southern struggled because of the fact that Alcorn State just came prepared to face them. Texas Southern ran out of ideas when Alcorn State came up with ideas, especially on defense. When your defense can hold an offense to only 2 touchdowns throughout the entire game, that does not only get you on a positive side. But it also basically tells you, as a defensive coordinator, as a head coach, that we have something right here in this team that we can finish this season off strongly and then attack recruiting and then possibly come out a whole lot better next year than you are this year. Even though this year it's not terrible, there were some games that you could have won. There were some games that were kind of difficult to win, but it's not the end of the world. It's kind of like with Norfolk State situation. But Alcorn State is in a better position than Norfolk State. So Texas Southern season outlook, the loss dropped Texas Southern to 4-4 overall and 3-2 in the SWAC. Though they still hold a head-to-head tiebreaker against Grambling, because if y'all remember, Texas Southern beat Grambling. So that's why Texas Southern is in the lead, even though it's a tie. If Grambling would have beat Texas Southern, then Grambling would have had the lead over Texas Southern. So that's the face of the SWAC West, and that's also the image of Texas Southern season. The struggle is real, but Alcorn State has something on the tip of their fingers, and it could be a positive future.
Agreed. But look, I think next year we'll see Alcorn return to how they normally are under new head coaching regime, new identity this season. But for Texas Southern, this is the thing that we say: inconsistent at times. You got 1 week where you lose to PV by 7 points, and your season is promising, and then you got weeks like that. But speaking of that inconsistency is Grambling, but I'm actually not going to speak too bad on Grambling. Look, Michael, we said last week that since T-Set went down and, Grambling's other backup is out right now, and they had a freshman in, it was going to be a difficult week. Freshman went down, so Grambling had to put another freshman starter quarterback. I can't get the name right now. I didn't. Short a week that we got this recorded in, so I didn't get time to look at it. But what Grambling did win on was the play of the game, in my opinion.
Second sack of the season.
In my opinion,
big punt. That's a sky.
Let me guess.
I'm gonna get that up there for you.
Kick.
I got a feeling I know what it is.
Franklin on the return.
Because
Franklin's still on his feet. He's gone. Franklin in the open field. All the way to the house. Touchdown.
I'm ready to see this.
Well, look, Michael. I'll play one more time for us. Look. And this is why I say, if this doesn't happen, Grambling loses, in my opinion.
It's wrong.
The game. I told you before, Michael, that it felt like at times that Grambling's offense just was not moving how we expected them to. We thought that. Look, we knew it was going to be difficult with backup quarterback in, but Grambling's offense just had no identity. And I told you this after the game. The defense kept Grambling in the game for a long time. They kept Grambling in. You see, Grambling won 13-10, but for the longest, Alabama A&M was up 10-0.
Yeah.
Grambling's defense had key forced turnovers and key forced stops.
Yep.
Mike, what is your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Before I get to my thought, I don't know if it was something wrong with my internet connection or what, because I didn't get a chance to see the clip. But the turning point in this game, Deuce, was the game-winning play, a 64-yard punt return for a touchdown by Delano Franklin in the fourth quarter. I believe I say his first name right. Y'all know I'm not good with names. Y'all forgive me. Grambling's offense, the Tigers had a tough time moving the ball with a total of 143 yards, 92 passing, and 51 rushing, and no offensive touchdowns. Deuce, that's kind of sad. I mean, let's be honest. Grambling wouldn't have won this game if it wasn't for their defense. And I'm gonna jump down to the defensive performance. Grambling defense was crucial in the win. This part that's gonna mess you up right here, Deuce. With 8 sacks and 2 turnovers. I'm gonna say it again, Deuce. This defense had 8 sacks and 2 turnovers. Jalen Wright led the Alabama A&M defense with 12 tackles, but it was the Grambling defense that gave up 8 sacks, not 5, not 2, not 3, 8 with 2 turnovers. That just tells you, dude, that the defense, once again, we've constantly said this week after week, that the defense is not the problem to Grambling struggles. I'm going to say it again. Grambling's defense is not the main struggle on this team.
I will say this one more thing before you keep going, before I forget it. Shout out to Grambling's backup kicker.
Yeah.
You had you already had a clutch field goal last week. You come in this week, you don't miss any. You have 2 good field goals to keep Grambling in the game. So
he went for 2 on his field goal attempts. He was also a key factor, and I was actually going to get to him. Dude, it just seemed like every kick that he made was just, it was down the middle. It was too easy for him. I don't even know who this guy is. I mean, he's a backup kicker. It was just like, and I'm just like, and I don't know. I guess I'm still kind of like traumatized from, not traumatized, but I'm like, that memory keep going in my head every time I see him sitting on the field because of what happened with the Jackson State game. I didn't expect him to make that kick, dude. So I'd never seen him kick before. So it was just like, when he stepped out on the field, all that nervousness that I had in that game against Jackson State, I didn't have that in this game because of the fact this guy got the kicking power, he got the accuracy, and that's kind of what I was just talking about not too long ago. It's not the kicker's problem if he can't make long field goals, especially if they're 40 plus or 50 plus yarders. It's just the mindset and the practice that you have to understand is that these kickers nowadays, especially coming down to HBCUs, kicking long field goals like 50 plus or 40 plus yarders, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy compared to these big school games like Alabama or Texas or Georgia. It's different over here. So when it comes down to kicking games, you kind of have to be like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make it. I'm not trying to be biased. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying, if you really know HBCU football, it's when it comes down to kicking long field goals, you just kind of have to be like, I mean, if he don't make it, I mean, it's gonna hurt. But I mean, you can't really expect, a kicker, especially if your special team is not that good. So that's just basically the turning point. Now, I will say the Bulldogs managed 175 total yards with J.D. Davis, the second, completing 12 of 18 passes for 123 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. The defense was on J.D. Davis real hard. And I got to give credit to Grambling State defensive line because they did their thing yesterday. Like I said, 8 sacks, okay? But 2 interceptions. So if Grambling defense, like I said, if Grambling defense can continue to keep playing like this, then it's the question isn't the defense. The question is now it's the offense. Because like you said, dudes, one of our freshmen already gone. Now we had to depend on another freshman. And I kind of knew going into this game that he was going to struggle because he did throw an interception that could have been a pick 6. But like I said, he's a freshman. So it's just really the coaching and it's the player's mind and how comfortable he is stepping out there. Now, he did do better, in the second half. And, he got better and better as the game goes along, because he threw a perfect deep ball, deep pass to one of the Grambling receivers. And I will say this, dude, that I also realized that Grambling's offense is starting to use their receivers a whole lot more, which is helping them stay on the field a whole lot longer. They're running the ball and only getting 2 or 3 yards per carry. I mean, dudes, I don't know how plain I can make this. When you use your receivers and your receivers are the type of receivers that can go up and get the ball and make tough catches, that does not only keep your offense on the field, but it improves your time of possession on the field, which just causes you to take control of the game clock. So now it's just like Grambling and Mickey Joseph are starting to that we can't depend on our running game, because our running game, even though it's nothing wrong with it, but sometimes defenses like Alabama A&M were feeding on that to now where they had to pass the ball because they were not staying on the field long enough. Like you said, dudes, they were down 10-0. You want to know why? Because they were not staying on the field long enough, which was causing their defense to get tired and not be able to move fast enough. So I admire what Grambling did, made some adjustments where they pulled this game. Now, like I said, Alabama A&M could have really took this game.
They really could have. And look, and I'm sorry to cut you off. That's why we talk about our pick'ems in a second. You know, Grambling faces Bethune-Cookman this week. This is why, like I told you, Michael, this is why I was hesitant to pick Grambling. Unfortunately, Grambling is playing at home, but when you're playing a team like Bethune-Cookman, who people have always slept on ever since they joined the SWAC, Bethune-Cookman has really made a name for himself.
Yeah.
If this is going to be a real ultimate test for Grambling, if Grambling wants to keep their playoff hopes alive, because they have to win this, but more so for Bethune-Cookman, because like I said before, Bethune-Cookman needs to win out if they want to win the championship or go to the championship game. But Michael, before we touch on this really quick, JSU versus FAMU, and I know we got to keep it quick because we got to run a short time. Mm-hmm. JSU versus FAMU, you know, JSU came in and won 41-16. Backup quarterback Jared Lockhart went 5 for 10, 104 passing yards, 1 touchdown. But the thing that stood out was 165 yards by running back Ahmad Miller. Just briefly, I'm just gonna say this. We spoke so highly on Ahmad Miller all season. He continues to impress. Jackson State, this is a nice shakeback win. Jackson State needed a win after this. Look, us Graham fan, we know we don't say it was an upset against Jackson State because we beat them last year. But in Jackson State's eyes and anybody other eye, this was an upset. They got upset. They had to win this game because if they lost, that's just gonna hurt their chances. As right now, Alabama State is tied. You know, Jackson State can't lose, or it's gonna hurt their chances to go to the championship game. So this win was important, but it was more so important. You're doing this without your starting quarterback, Jared Lockhart. We said this early in the season. He is a quarterback that he's a good backup quarterback that the team can use. We said he should have came in earlier last week, but Michael, that's just my 2 cents on it before I get to the pick'ems. But your quick thoughts on this?
Yeah, you know, for the sake of time, I'm just gonna jump to Jackson State positive and negatives, and then I'm gonna jump down to Florida A&M positive and negatives. Jackson State positives. Number 1, dominant running attack. The Tigers running backs, Ahmad Miller, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. Denario Davenport, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. Were highly effective, leading a ground game that amassed 392 total rushing yards, Deuce. I'm going to say it again. Ahmad Miller and Denario Davenport led the ground game, which totaled 392 rushing yards total. Number 2, effective second half adjustments. After leading only 10-3 at halftime, Jackson State scored 31 points in the second half to pull away from the Rattlers, demonstrating, here it is, a strong in-game coaching adjustments. Number 3, solid defense. Jackson State's defense held Florida A&M to just 202 total yards of offense. Here it is, only 70 rushing yards and forced key turnovers. Number 4, freshman quarterback performance. Freshman quarterback Jared Lockhart filling in for an injured starter, Jacoby Morgan, managed the game well by minimizing mistakes. No interceptions, y'all. None. He didn't throw none interception game and making key plays, including, here it is, a 42-yard touchdown pass. Okay, last thing. High third down conversion rate. Jackson State was successful on 9 of 15 conversion attempts, sustaining drives effectively. Jackson State negatives. First half struggles. The offense was not clicking in the first half, resulting in only 10 points before they managed a second half surge. Fumbles. Quarterback Jerry Lockhart fumbled the ball twice, losing one possession, which could have been costly in a closer game. So regardless, even though he didn't throw any interceptions, he did fumble. But overall, he did good enough to get Jackson State over the Rattlers and score 41 points over this game. Because when I looked at the game at first, I was just like, man, this game is kind of close. The struggle is happening right now in the first half. But then I said this in my head. Someone was telling me in my head that, yeah, Jackson State's struggling right now, Mike. But you got to remember, Jackson State can't dominate in the second half. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to see that. And they did not disappoint. Deuce, it just come to show you, and I kind of knew this before the game started, that Florida A&M was not going to be able to hang much with Jackson State. But I also thought about how has Jackson State improved after the loss to Grambling in Las Vegas. So this just shows you that Jackson State made some adjustments in the second half, which caused them to win this game. I would go to Florida A&M positive, but I'm not trying to take too long. But I'm just going to list two positives here. Defensive resistance at times. Florida A&M's defense held up reasonably well against the Jackson State passing attack, limiting the Tigers to only 104 yards through the air. Last thing, red zone forced a red zone turnover. The Rattlers forced one turnover in the red zone, preventing Jackson State from an easy score. So even though Florida A&M got beat badly against Jackson State, but there were still some positives. I have more negatives than positives here, Deuce. I only got two positives for you. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives for Florida A&M. Poor third down conversions. Deuce, this part is going to get y'all right here. Florida A&M converted only 1 of 11 on third down attempts. My God. I'm going to say it again. Florida A&M converted only 1 of 11 on third down attempts, measuring a factor in their inability to extend their drive, which also shows you that Jackson State defense was no match. No, I'll take it back. Jackson State defense was too tough for Florida A&M to handle. Florida A&M was not prepared for Jackson State. Regardless of the score, the stats don't lie. These are game notes from the game, and I've seen it myself. But when your defense can hold a team to only 1 conversion on 11 attempts, dudes, I don't know how plain I can make this. That just tells you that the defense was a huge factor in the Jackson State game. And we all know Jackson State defense, regardless of what happened in that Grambling game, Jackson State still got their defense. They might not have the best defense, but they got a good enough defense to beat Florida A&M as badly. Because really, if the odds were against us and it was different, and Florida A&M would have Jackson State, did want to have something to complain about. But regardless of Jackson State losing that game against Grambling, and then they come to this game, and then they hold Florida A&M to only 16 points, that tells you that they made some adjustments. Because ain't no way Jackson State was going to lose another game, especially against Florida A&M. I'm just saying. Ain't no way. Ain't no way TC Taylor was going to bring Jackson State to Florida and had them lose another game. Ain't no way. Their heads were just too in lock for that.
But look, hopping into this week's HBCU Pick'em, Michael, you mentioned you got the game against South Carolina State and Morgan State, right? I had Morgan State, you had South Carolina State. South Carolina State won, but I did get you on the UAPB and Southern game. But it's a new week, so your thoughts, Prairie at Alabama A&M. We said this earlier. Prairie View, they got to bounce back. They need to continue to win if they want to win the division and if they want to go conference championship. I think the way Alabama A&M performed against Graham, it just didn't show a bunch to me. I feel like they lost themselves the game. Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I just think, last game, I really thought Southern was gonna, play a whole lot better than UAPB because, like I said, UAPB and Southern, I honestly thought they were, their offense was kind of almost the exact same, and their defenses were totally different. But it just comes to show you that UAPB, they are way better than Southern than I anticipated. So I will agree on that. I think this week here in general, of course we know Bethune-Cookman is. I just feel like Bethune-Cookman is going to take this game against Grambling. I mean, no, Grambling is coming in hot right now. And
on a 3-game win streak, but I just think Bethune-Cookman is just even better. They've been playing outstanding football, and it sadly it hasn't been getting recognized enough, but they've been playing outstanding football.
And then if you look at the offense in general, Bethune-Cookman has the offensive advantage only because Grambling is in a quarterback situation right now, and which I think could play a key factor in this game against Bethune-Cookman. I believe Bethune-Cookman is going to take advantage of that. Now,
but I will say this. Bethune-Cookman, their wins have been against teams that Grambling has already beat, except Alabama State. So Grambling very much well could come out with the win and pull out the upset because Grambling has had a harder schedule than Bethune-Cookman, in my opinion, inside of conference games. Bethune-Cookman hasn't played as many. I'm looking at it right now. You play Southern, you play UAPB, you play Mississippi Valley, you play Alabama A&M. What's the common denominator in all of them? They're under 500 and they're not performing well right now. And yes, Arkansas Pine Bluff did just come off a win, but they're still not performing well this year. Valley still hasn't performed well. Southern hasn't performed well. So Bethune-Cookman has had relatively an easier schedule than Graham. Yeah. So, but Grambling cannot come in with inconsistent play. But a game that I want to look at is this FAMU UAPB game. Michael, I see that you took FAMU with this, and for everybody that's watching, this is up on our Instagram. Go check that out. We'll post a link in the comments. But FAMU versus UAPB, what's your thoughts for FAMU? You think FAMU shakes back after the Jackson State loss?
I feel like Florida A&M is gonna, I honestly feel like Florida A&M is going to shake back from this game against Jackson State because I honestly believe they knew what was going to happen going into this game against Jackson State. But I honestly will say this, that even though UAPB beat Southern, but let's be honest, Southern is not Florida A&M. Florida is playing way better than Southern is combined. But, it's what's going to determine, Deuce, is really how Florida A&M comes out. Will they come out score first? Will they come out and manage the game? Will they, stay on the field longer? Because I don't know if y'all heard me, when I was talking about it before, that Florida A&M had trouble staying on the field. They only completed 1 of 11 on third downs. So, I believe they can make adjustments, especially on third downs. But the main question here is how Florida A&M is going to come into this game. And I hope that, that Florida A&M come into this game because UAPB, they are beatable. And, the only reason why I went with Southern is because, I kind of gave Southern the benefit of the doubt because I honestly thought that they were going to play a little bit better than UAPB because when I seen Grambling play UAPB, it just said that their offense they're not the flashiest offense, but they can get down the field. They know how to get down the field. Like I said, you don't have to have the best offense to get down the field. You just gotta have the plays to get down the field.
But you have FAMU just coming in on the road and upsetting UAPB. Their records are pretty much identical. So, and I know we have their quarterback. We have their quarterback in our MVP race. He's 5th right now. Look, I very much get your opinion, but this is the reason why I got UAPB. Look, I told you this before. The home field advantage, it plays a factor, in my opinion, in college football. If FAMU doesn't come out the gate strong like they did against Jackson State, UAPB will get them because UAPB, they're not like you said, Michael, they're not the flashiest team, but they have just enough to get the job done and win when it's needed.
Yeah.
They're not going to win the division, but they know how to put a close game with teams that they're facing. I'm looking at it right now. Bethune-Cookman in each of their losses, or I'm gonna say since actually no. Because against Alcorn, they had that close game. Against Texas Southern, they got blew out. Against Graham, they had a close game. Against Bethune-Cookman, it was close for a little bit. But I think against average teams like FAMU, UAPB knows how to keep a game close.
Yeah. And
and UAPB, in my opinion, is in that same tier that Grambling's in. That's your team that are just average. Texas Southern's in it, Grambling's in it, Arkansas Pine Bluff's in it, FAMU's in it. They're all in the teams that are just average this year. But I mean, Michael, jumping to because I don't think there's really too much to say about Jackson State against Mississippi Valley. They haven't been doing the best this year. Obviously, we got them with the win. I think they continue to win. Alabama State, they continue to win. Texas Southern, they cannot play inconsistent ball. Alcorn versus Southern, that could go either way, but I think we both chose Alcorn just because we know that Southern just doesn't have the team this year. They're not the team that they were last year, and Alcorn just has the better team. And in our eyes, they sit at 2-3 in conference play. Southern sits at 0-5.
Yeah, Alcorn's offense is, and I said this, not too long ago when they played Texas Southern. Their offense is, like I said, they don't have the best offense either, but they have the players, they have the play scheme, they have the quarterback, they have enough to get down the field. And I just feel like, when it comes down to Alcorn State and in general, I just feel like, that Alcorn is just, they're going to embarrass Southern because Southern has fallen off the wagon and they can't catch up. So it's just like, Southern season is basically over with, and now it's just like, how many wins can they rally up at this point? Because and I'm going to say this now, please, and I'm gonna say this. I don't mean to go off topic here. I'm gonna go jump back and just say it, but I need to say this right quick. Even though the Bayou Class ain't here yet, so even though Southern is not playing hot, but this Bayou Classic can go totally different because I don't care how well Grambling's playing. I know for a fact that we all know that the Bayou Classic that game always is close. Regardless of the records, the game is always close. And it's going, excuse me, y'all, it's going to come down to what can Grambling do? If T-Sec can come back before the Bayou Classic, that'll be huge because then now, you have a chance to take the Bayou Classic. I'm not saying Grambling does not have a chance to take the Bayou Classic, but I don't think I'm not going to be easy. I'm not sleeping on Southern. Okay, I know y'all saying that. Why you say that? They're 1-8. Man, this Bayou Classic is going to be easy, without a doubt. But I'm just saying sometimes you have to expect the unexpected. So I'm just saying that even though Southern is 1-8, y'all all know how the Bayou Classic always turns out. So I'm just saying it's just really going to come down to where is Grambling going to be between now and the Bayou Classic. Will T-Sec come back healthy enough? Or will, the backup quarterback, I can't think of his name right now. Will he come back and lead Grambling's offense? And will Grambling's offense do better with passing the ball than running the ball? That running game is effective. It's efficient. I have no problem with it. But you can't expect your offense to stay on the field just doing one or two things, and that's just about running the ball. But then you have different formation because it's not hard to adjust to that, especially if you're playing a good defense. Now you might be able to do that against Southern, but anyway, I'm gonna jump back right quick. I honestly believe, Deuce, that Alcorn is going to give Southern a game, and it's not going to be pretty. I believe that Alcorn State's offense is going to be really, really tough for Southern defense to manage. And I'm just going to leave it at that because they can run the ball, they can pass the ball. They They can find ways to get down the field, regardless of their record in conference play. Alcorn State is that team, like I said before, to not sleep on. They might not be the flashiest offense, but they got depth. They got depth at almost every position to give you a game that you will never see coming. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's why I chose Alcorn, because I believe Alcorn has the capabilities of I don't want to say embarrass Southern, but outball Southern.
Look, I mean, for me, I think Alcorn's a team that, even though they're not performing well, they're a team that can catch you on your worst day, or on your best day. But jumping into the MEAC side, I know we're pretty much eye and eye on everything. Delaware State continues to win. Morgan State, I know I had them winning last week, but Morgan State just doesn't look like the team I thought they were. Howard versus South Carolina State. South Carolina State is going to continue to win. I think the game of the year is going to be against Delaware State that last week. Yep. They both sit at 2-0 conference play right now.
Mm-hmm.
Norfolk versus NC Central. Yes, NC Central did lose a heartbreaker to Delaware State, but I think they're going to continue to win out. I don't think Norfolk, although we said it before we discussed earlier, Norfolk has their ways to go. This is just not their season. And Tennessee State, I think UT Martin pulls this out. Tennessee State just doesn't seem like the team to me this year.
Yeah.
But Michael, before we go closing this out, do you have anything to say before we got to go? Because I know that we were on a short time today.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say this, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Y'all make sure that y'all say a prayer for our brothers and sisters over there. I believe it was Jamaica or Africa. A hurricane was over there, and it's the area itself does not look the same before the storm came. So y'all be in your prayers for our brothers and sisters over there on the other side of the sea, in Jamaica or Africa, praying that they can get back up on their feet. Even though we're a podcast, but we're trying to be a people podcast. And, times is hard, times is tough, but one thing you never want to see is a nation falling. And I just pray that Jamaica or Africa, I believe it was Jamaica, that they get back up on their feet and rebuild, and they get the relief, the disaster relief to pick back up, because that storm was no joke. And the rebuilding stage needs to happen at some point for them. No nation deserves to be fallen. I can care less where they are. We're all one people. We're all one nation. We're all
agreed. But like as I always say, look, we're at 223 subscribers. Our goal is 250 subscribers. And on this video, our goal is 1,000. In fact, the video will be posted in a few minutes. So yes, 250 subscribers.
Okay.
And as always, we get our goals to 1,500 type views. But yeah, I said we're on a short time frame. We got this done in 58 minutes. As always, like I say, stay safe, like, comment, subscribe, and continue to share all of our content. Thank y'all for all y'all support.
Great, grace, peace, y'all.